Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I am an axiological atheist, which can be simply understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. Or, me personally, I am a theoretical axiologist and normative axiologist who's also an atheist, and I understand atheism and approach it generally from that perspective, at least first. And I'm here with a guest. Could you go ahead and tell us your name and a little bit about you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Abhijit Naskar. I'm a neuroscientist, and I mainly write on various issues of the mind and relating to also social issues. So everything that has to do with various kinds of conflicts and discriminations and prejudices and even self-awareness in the society.
Wonderful. And could you tell us a little bit about the books that you've written? You said you've written several books.
Yes, I have written around, so far there are 33.
Wow.
And yes, and I guess last time when we talked, it was 32. I was working on my 33rd book.
Oh, right on. Well, what's your current book? If you can let us know.
Yes, my latest one is a book on conscience. It's called Conscience Over Nonsense.
Conscience is in internal barometer, or how are you meaning that?
Exactly. A kind of internal barometer that actually a human barometer.
Yeah, right. Well, what I'm saying, that's what I meant is a human-based, in other words,
exactly,
thought-generated, morality in a sense from oneself or one's awareness of the world.
I wouldn't just say that it's just thought-generated. Thought is, of course, a part of it, but there is much wider than that. But fundamentally, it is basically a human barometer.
Right,
and it's created in the human mind. It doesn't come from somewhere outside an imaginary realm.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what you meant by that, because some people, when they say that, they can mean like God's presence in you or your soul.
Yes, of course. That's why the very title says that conscience over nonsense.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, I figured so. I just wanted to clarify, especially also for the people listening, that they can understand where you're coming from, because a lot of my listeners are atheists or non-believers, so things that relate to that. And also, I'm really into humanism also, and into socialism, and into kindness and caring and human empathy and morality. So that also, people that like my stuff probably would also like that, because it has the two things that I generally am, which is I don't believe but I care.
Exactly. I think that's what defines us as humans. I mean, we may have different opinions.
Right.
It doesn't matter. People may have different opinions, but as long as they are not advocating for the sole supremacy of their own opinion and everything else is wrong, and that my perception is everything.
Right.
That is wrong. That we cannot. I advocate for acceptance, but not acceptance of discrimination or bigotry.
Right.
So,
well, I just want to clarify one point with you, mate. You're not saying when you say like that people can, in a sense, because I kind of agree, and I just want to caveat. I agree that I think everyone owns themselves. They own rights or ideas, and I don't ever attack people just for having different ideas. Never. I not say never. As long as they're not horrific. I mean, if you believe in murdering, I'm going to attack that idea.
Exactly.
But I mean, but I'm saying within reason. Generally people believe that they believe in God or not ghosts, spirits. That doesn't matter to me. I don't ever, like, if someone came up to me and said, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Sikh, I'm a Islamist, I'm a Christian.
Islamist would be another different one.
Muslim. Yeah, correct. I mean Muslim, but I meant, I don't mean as in Islam nationalist, because that's like a political thing. I wasn't referring.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you clarified that. I just mean Muslims. I meant one that believes in Islam. How's that? Believers in Islam. Okay. Well, it doesn't matter. Yes, because whenever people have a desire to infringe on the rights of others, that I do challenge.
That is.
But if you simply say, I believe in, that, like if you said, I believe I shouldn't eat meat, or if I believe I shouldn't eat vegetables, if I believe I should, only carry rocks or not carry rocks, or whatever, have my hair like this, all those things to me in general, as long as you keep it to you, fine. That makes you happy? It doesn't really, in a sense, bother me. What bothers me about religion is when you say, I'm going to force my children to think like this because I do. That bothers me deeply. When I say everyone in society now has to be obligated to how I think, that bothers me. And I feel this way too when some of the atheist nationalists, and it's not that there's not many of them, there's not, but I do note and have heard people say, and I challenge it too, when an atheist says that somehow we should force atheism on people. No! We shouldn't force thinking on anybody except being kind and being respectful of others. That we should, in a sense, not force, but require, But the thinking of making everyone else think, even like in atheism, I'm a rationalist, not a skeptic. In other words, I approach things from it has to make sense. It has to follow a line of logical, proofs, or I do not accept it. So I'm not skeptical of your belief. You need to present something that's reasonable before I will believe. So it's a different approach, and some people have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with people being skeptic. I don't ever say skeptics are bad. I say that's not how I think. That's not how I approach my atheism. So, like you were saying, but I feel like sometimes the skeptics feel like I have to fit in the skeptic community, or I'm not an atheist or something, or not.
Yes. I think there's the problem. The point is, every single human being thinks in a unique manner, no matter which label they want to fit into. But the point is, the moment they recognize themselves into with a certain label, whether she's atheist or Muslim, Hindu, doesn't matter, their mind begins to work on various defense mechanisms against any kind of criticism.
Yeah.
But the point is, a real free thinker, a real rationalist,
yes,
or let's just say a real human.
Well, you could say one who values reason, because a real human could be anybody, reasonable or unreasonable. But I know what you meant. You mean one that values reason, right? I mean, I would agree. People don't always act humane, but they are physically still a human. They're just not acting humane in their humanity as a human, in a sense.
I don't see the point in calling a person human if that person doesn't have those humane elements.
You're saying
they can be human.
Well, you're saying they're not behaving at the best of our humanness. See, because exactly. I find that to be a serious problem. Seriously, that is the element that feeds that one statement of the lack of human. The once we can remove the human and move them into other than human category, we have then given ourselves the moral, in a sense, inclination to want to do something about that. And what we usually do is bigotry, hate, violence. So I'm not saying that is doing that. I'm saying that is the catalyst. When we allow ourselves, and you look at human history, almost every time that we do barbaric things, especially racism, sexism, homophobia, all these things, the inclination starts with, they're not human. They're not human enough.
Yes, exactly.
It's that. So I just want to challenge that in you. That really bothers me, because I know that is the fucking seed of all this separation, this vileness. It's not that itself. It's like, as one person told me that he's a racialist, not a racist. The difference is so close to the same to me that it's, if in other words, I see things, I'm an axiologist, I see things in layers of value. That's value is so far from what's real value to me that it's valueless. In fact, it's toxic to real value. Because when we allow ourselves to think anyone who is a human being is somehow not human, it allows us to feel vindicated in our hate, vindicated in our violence. So that, sir, I have to challenge, because to me, it is the slipping point to all that. That's just... I'm not challenging you, I'm just challenging that element.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. And that is, you made a beautiful point there, that the moment we see others as less human than us, we inadvertently it's a kind of slippery slope that we get into hatred and discrimination. And that is precisely my point.
Yes.
A human being can be anybody.
That's right.
Muslim, Hindu, Jew, Christian, atheist, anybody. As long as their actions have values, we don't need to know from where those values come.
I don't agree with that. Hold on a second. So let me show you what I mean. Because you just made an axiological confusion to me. You're saying that their actions. See, the reason that we say someone, as you were saying, in this sense, is not acting human is because we hold humans to standards. But the reason we hold humans to standards and not animals is because we know the human potential to be good. So because we know their human potential to be able to be good, in other words, I don't forget that they're human. I don't forget their potential to be good. I can then hold them accountable when they are not good. Do you see what I'm saying? The moment that I say that they're not human, how can I then hold them to human standards? I only can truly hold them to a human standard when I agree they are human. When Hitler does inhuman things, the reason that is so, not just because animals kill tons of humans, we don't go, oh my God, animals are terrible. No, we go, they don't think, they don't know. A child kills a person, we don't go, children are dangerous. We go, that child didn't know and made a mistake. So it's the human quality that we're actually pinning our morality challenge on. You, sir, not you, like Hitler or whatever, you're not acting human. And I know you can, thus I can hold you accountable ethically to not doing that. And see, to me, it's that point that I don't ever forget. I'm not saying that we shouldn't hold people accountable. I'm just saying we should never stop seeing the human, even if they are acting inhuman.
That is my point. The moment we see ourselves something more than human, like our label becomes more important than the simple humanness or humanity or humanism, doesn't matter, not humanism as in the philosophy, just plain ordinary everyday human kindness. The moment we see our label to be of more importance than basic plain ordinary humanity, that is the time we begin to stop seeing others from different ideologies, different philosophies, different schools of thought. Yes. We begin to foster a kind of implicit hatred. In many cases, that hatred is not even conscious. It's just starting from subconscious mind.
Eventually. That's like you wanted to talk about enlightenment. And to me, I think that, I realized I became the wisest, not by anything I learned, but on how I behaved. To me, I realized my impact in the world is the greatest, not just by my words, but by my actions, by my behavior. They sing the poetry of my humanity, or they cry out my shame of my inhumanity.
So, that's precisely it, perhaps, when we are talking about enlightenment. But in most cases, when people hear there is a problem with terms.
Oh, definitely.
Every term has again, where we go again.
Oh, yes. Don't even get me started on terms. I'm an axiologist. I want to know all their value and how they place them. Because, see, once we understand the value, I can know how to use it. Once I can use it, I can be more accurate. I can get more benefit out of things.
That is the point. When we hear a certain term, every single human being throughout their lifetime has been conditioned to a kind of relate to various memories, emotions, sentiments, all those things, all those mental elements. They suddenly pop up to their minds and relate it to that specific term. So even we may not be conveying the kind of message that we want to, but they may be thinking it in a different way. So when we are talking about enlightenment, suddenly people start talking about mystical experiences, meeting with God, union with the universe, and all that stuff without even having a little bit of clue what the heck is that.
Exactly.
They don't have any clue. They just believe what they have been told. Many of them, actually almost none of them, have experienced any of those things. And the things that we do experience, we encounter in clinical cases that actually the thing that we call the historical kind of enlightenment, those things that do occur today are actually coming from the clinical cases, which means due to certain kind of medical condition. It could be epileptic seizures and various medical conditions.
Right.
Other than that, we can even relate to that. Some of the historical encounters, that is those enlightenments, were also caused by these kind of medical conditions. Specific one comes to my mind, Joan of Arc. Medical historians have concluded that she had kind of temporal lobe epilepsy. So her seizure made her see visions, have visions, and listen and hallucinate and all that. And the point is, the problem with these kind of mystical enlightenment, we may call it, that it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't come from outside of us. It rises from the mind within itself. Mm-hmm. Now, whatever desire we have already, they begin to manifest in that specific state. So if we do have a desire to meet God, and we have been programmed by our society, by our condition, by our culture, to perceive God in a specific image or a figure, then in that specific state of mind, we actually begin to experience in our own subjective reality, we begin to experience that. So,
well, one second, just for people, when you say a subjective reality, to me, I would say that all of our reality, in a sense, is subjective. Because to me, yes, I feel like I have a degree in psychology, so that's kind of how I take it, my little bit of my ideas from. But I see the mind, in a sense, as a projection. In other words, like when we think of ourselves, the us inside, we don't think of it as a mind with these little eyeballs. We think of it as almost like an avatar. That's why I think Hinduism is interesting about avatars, because I think in a sense we have this mental projection of what we think this us is, and this thing that we think doesn't change. There's this us, like this little avatar in our mind, in a sense it doesn't change. But that's totally ridiculous. Our mind is constantly changing. How the reality is we're having this like emotional sea in front of our eyes. All our feelings, all of our experiences of our lives, past, present, whatever, our beliefs of the future, all in how we then look at the world. And it's like having different pairs of glasses. I mean, it affects us. And that's why, to me, your mood, we throw more mood into that ocean, all of a sudden our glasses become redder. And when we're more calm, they become blue or whatever. I'm not saying exactly, but I'm just saying in a reference and I kind of, just giving an idea mentally. So to me, we're constantly subjective because we're constantly, in a sense, perceiving the world by our mood and by our experience and by our belief of the future, So I mean, it's not that we can't focus and then just see the world as it is. We do sometimes, but not usually. Usually, that's why, to me, it's when you have a person at a park steal a purse and you ask 15 people that saw it, what was the person that stole the purse? They'll have men, women, different heights, different colors, holding different things. Some will be super elaborate. Some will have almost no information. So everyone's looking supposedly at the same thing. The reason I think that we always have such a great error in that is because we don't really. That's all I was saying is, to me, most of our experience is subjective. It's not that we can't have objective things in that, but go ahead. Sorry.
I've said in my book, Conscience Over Nonsense, that the truth is nobody knows the truth because the human brain is not capable of perceiving the truth. Right. We don't have the tools to see the truth. That's why there are so many people talking about truth, and I need to see the truth, understand the truth, but it's all nonsense because the thing we call truth is irrelevant to human existence because we are kind of a species at its infancy and we cannot understand all those things. But the thing that we need to be aware of is the human universe, the human truth, that the things that matter in the evolution of humanity. and in fact the evolution of nature that is on Earth. The things that influence human life. And yes, everything we see is subjective. But sometimes...
Right, so I would agree with you that we don't know truth in an ultimate sense. But that doesn't mean we don't know truth in like an absolute sense in a certain given frame. In other words, in math, 1 + 1 = 2. Period. That's a truth in that context. So in absolute context, like logic, we know there's logical fallacies, but that's in that context. You can know a thing about neuroscience in that context. So I think that we can have absolute, like, positional things, not like ultimate, absolute everything.
Yes. So let's just differentiate between that. First of all, there is no such thing as objective truth that we need to be conscious of or we need to bother ourselves with, because it's irrelevant. We are not capable.
But if that statement is true, then it would be applied universally. But that would mean that everything now you're going to say is not true. Because you cannot say, hold on a second. You cannot say, I deny the existence of truth, and then say, well, this is true. That is a contradiction, which is a logical fallacy.
Yes, that's
you cannot say.
But what we can see is subjective truth and the various layers, as you said, layers.
Yes,
various layers of truth. We can say that various layers of subjective truth, subjective reality. We can say naturalism is the least subjective reality that we are aware of.
I would agree. Naturalism. I would agree that it is the truth. As far as, like I said, to me it's an ultimate truth in this understanding of reality. I may be wrong that there's
That's precisely my point. In our understanding of reality, the ultimate truth that we can be aware of, bringing into all our capacities for reasoning and math and our understanding of the physical universe and everything, there comes naturalism.
I agree.
On the other end of the spectrum of subjective truths, we can call it, there is another one, creationism. Now, there is a huge line of difference.
Well, creationism would be just one of the varied, because really we're talking about supernaturalism, or what I call conspiracy theories of reality.
But those who actually believe in their subjective reality, they would see it as the ultimate truth. So
and I think that what they do then is they put that belief into their sea of phenomenology, thus their glasses become tinted, and then they see the world through that. And I would say, yes, when they feel an experience that's emotional, they go, oh, that was God touching me, or that's the spirit, or that was Krishna, or that, that was Muhammad's, the whole point is, I'm trying to say is, I agree, we then emotionally interpret the world, but through this belief that there's something else. But like I said, I think we're already doing that anyways, whether it's religion or not, because I believe that some of the beliefs that we see the world through is the belief of the future. And I think this is different than animals. I don't see animals really doing that, because what I mean is, I can be afraid of you for something you haven't done. If you say to me, I'm going to possibly harm your child, whenever you have one, which I don't have one, in the future, maybe. I would be terrified in a sense, where an animal, it's more immediate. Everything is about what you're going to do and have done. If you start treating the animal good, then they totally love you. Humans don't do that generally. If you've been super mean and all of a sudden you're nice, that doesn't generally make us like you. I mean, we go from fear to non-fear, but that's not the same as liking you, because we have this belief of what the future you could do. We already know the past, in a sense, we believe. So I think that we have this constant projection of future beliefs onto how we perceive a lot of the world. In other words, I see people that fear immigrants. I fear immigrants not because they've done personally something to you. It's the fear of the future, what they could do. So I'm trying to say. I don't have any fear of immigrants. Bring them on.
Actually, you may. Oftentimes, the point is, we are conditioned. The process of conditioning, we don't have any control of it. We may.
Oh, that's true. Yes, I agree.
That's the point. The point
we have control of how we let it continue in our lives, but we have no control that it's coming in.
Even if somebody feeling afraid of the immigrant, That's completely okay, but, there is a but the person has an active conscience. Then comes the functioning of the conscience, that whether that fear is actually based on evidence or simply the conditioning of the society. That's what defines us, again, as humans, whether we are being conscientious, whether we can think for ourselves.
Yes.
So to talk about, again, subjective reality, our entire perception is subjective, but it's a kind of spectrum.
I agree.
Now it depends on which layer we are.
I agree with that. Well, as axiologists, I see things in layers because it's not just black or white. There's a lot of variation.
For example, there is this talk about enlightenment. There is this neurosurgeon. I don't know whether you have read the book. He wrote about.
I probably not. I read this. I hate reading. I mean, people always get mad when I say that because I'm a rationalist. I can't help it. I don't like to read. I read as little as possible. But just so you know, I've read 10,000 articles in archaeology, and I've read 5 college books in archaeology, and I don't even like that either, to read that. My degree was in psychology. But I do it if it's necessary. But yes, I will get to, there's tons of books I should read, and I will probably be into.
No, they're just asking. So there is this book written by a neurosurgeon. He had a kind of accident and he went into coma, and then he visited heaven. But the point is, he's a neurosurgeon, and he's having this kind of enlightenment or kind of experience, mystical encounter, going into heaven, comes back, writes the book. Now, he has a spectrum of subjective reality. No matter how much rational arguments we make to prove, I don't want to prove anything to him, but just saying that no matter how many rational arguments we make to show that his experiences, there is this thing called near-death experience. People often, during the moment of death, experience either going to heaven. Many actually have gone to heaven and come back. And I met God, or I met my deceased relative, and they talked to me. God has given me a mission, and this kind of stuff. So they come back. Then, to them, it's completely real. There are various evolutionary and psychological reasons behind seeing it as real. We may not go into all that detail. So the point is, during those experiences, the brain lacks oxygen. And due to the lack of oxygen, the levels of stress hormones go way high. That releases another chemical called DMT, dimethyltryptamine. It's the most profound hallucinogenic natural compound that's released in the brain. It happened during the case of the neurosurgeon who went to heaven. So during these times, it's a kind of nature's mechanism to keep us calm even when we are having a kind of horrible experience. So we are not aware of that. So the last few moments of our life should be as peaceful as possible. Nature made sure of that. Now they come back because before we didn't have so much technology to bring people back from the dead. But now we do. Now when they come back, but they have already had that experience, that they are experiencing it, that they are meeting their deceased relatives and God because of that chemical called DMT. And they experience it whatever they want to. Now it completely rewires their perception, rewires their brain in a certain way that they become blind to any kind of rational argument against that experience, because that experience has been so strong in making that person survive that situation that the brain is going to defend that experience at all costs.
Right. So let's go back to what I said. That's why I feel that we see the world in our phenomenology. When the phenomenology, in a sense, is our emotional reaction to the world, in a sense. But so, and as you know, there's no time that a human's awake that we're not emoting, having emotional response. Even when we're reasoning, we're still emotional as we do it, which is why, as you said, we always, in a sense, have to be careful because we're being subjective generally to a lot of varying degrees. I try very hard to use methodological rationalism, a processed way of approaching thinking, because if you don't, to me, it feels like that too often we can be subjective, even by accident, not intentional always, because our minds, that's why I always tell people, to me, the biggest thing that people do in errors in thinking is generalization. It's got to be that we don't like details. Our minds are fucking lazy. They don't like to think about, they like to, oh, well, you know, kind of, sort of. We don't, or I think, you know, you don't, do you know? Well, not really. Well, then why do you say you think that? Well, I don't know. I just, so we have this tendency of profound not thinking. And which is why, to me, I want to inspire thinking. I want to talk to thinkers. That's why I like talking to you. I like talking to people that can think and people that are willing to learn, with people that are willing to teach. This is a thinker, someone who can do both. People think that like a person that thinks is only the one who's teaching. A true thinker is both a student and a teacher, to me.
For example, one specific phrase that I learned, and I still remember actually that from our last conversation, you said about humanism, that humanism is about human problems solved by humans.
Yeah, humans. So, I said my basic all humanism has to appeal to at some point is that humans can solve human problems by human means. It doesn't mean you believe in God. Doesn't mean you don't believe in God. It just means that you, no matter what, we're all here. We're gonna have to work together because there's nothing else to do but do that. And there's evidence that by doing that, regardless of race, religion, color, country, it doesn't matter. Sexuality, when we work together like that, we become the highest of our humanity.
And that's where the evolution of perhaps enlightenment comes along.
I think so.
Let's put it this way. Every single phenomenon, term, doesn't matter. Every single idea that we have in our mind, none of it is constant. Everything in our mind, every single element of our perception is constantly changing.
I agree.
So, if we really want to advance as a species, then we have to constantly check and recheck and adopt new positive elements from the environment and discard all the things that are not working at the current moment. So that's how we need to evolve, and that's how every single phenomenon can evolve. Enlightenment. A few thousand years ago, enlightenment could mean something else.
True.
But now, in today's world, enlightenment has to mean something else. Because people
I would say at least since the 1600s, Western civilization, it's been the age of reason, or the Enlightenment, the age of reason, or the age of science, really. Is it?
That's precisely, I think, that's precisely the enlightenment of today, that free thinking.
Yeah.
Free thinking, not just free thinking as in my thinking is correct and every single person who just talks with beliefs and emotions is wrong and I should be hating that. That's not free.
I agree.
That's nonsensical thinking. So free thinking means really being free from all prejudices,
I agree.
all biases. Free from biases doesn't mean we don't have bias. We do have biases, we do have prejudices, but we are aware of them enough to not let them express through our behaviors or ruin our character, our personality, and all that.
I totally agree.
So that's why free thinking comes in. I think free thinking ultimately becomes the enlightenment of 21st century and eventually even...
Well, and I agree that the ones who started, in a sense, free thinking were, in a sense, westernized Christians generally, but not just them, because it was happening in Islam. Islam, when it first started, was a hell of a lot more enlightened than it is now. It's like, what the hell? It's like the de-evolution of humanity. Islam goes, in a sense, at some point, a scientific almost, and then today, like, they're like blowing up science. So like, what the...
The point is, every single, let's put it this way, every single culture has their advantages and disadvantages, their good things and their bad things. Islam used to be at the pinnacles of science.
I agree.
And look at it today.
They hate science almost now. I mean,
Exactly. And the same is happening with Hinduism as well. Some of the
original Hindu philosophers, some of them were even atheistic.
The problem with people from the ancient Hindu times I don't like the term Hindu because it doesn't mean anything, although we have to use it to.
Well, I understand Hinduism. The word Hindu, in a sense, to me, if I remember right, is created from the Europeans, not from the indigenous people.
Actually, the Sanskrit term for it is Sanatana Dharma, which means the ancient religion.
Right.
So let's just call it those people who actually lived, the philosophers of that time who lived in the Indus Valley civilization. They are not. The problem is that they are not even seen by their people, by the Indians or the Hindus as philosophers. Those Indians have made gods out of them. They worship them as kind of supernatural beings.
Right.
That's even more reason that their philosophies are not coming out as philosophies that have been done in the Western world in many of the Christian philosophies.
Right.
Meister Eckhart and Thomas Aquinas and Martin Luther King and various others, all those philosophies, they may be coming from the Christian world, but the free thinkers have an active mind to bring the positive element out of those people. Even they may be Christian priests, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the problem with Hindu philosophies is that they are all gods. So then theirs are not philosophy, they're all gospel coming from some supernatural realm, and that's the problem.
Well,
so
I think just on one point, not about exactly what you're saying, but kind of that, and I believe that ancestor beliefs is how we get gods. Well, I think that animal deities are totemist. They go to like a totemism, that our clan's totem then became our clan's god. Like even in Native Alaskans, not Alaskans, Russians, Far East Russians, they have a belief that the crow, which is their totem in a sense, I think if I remember right, is also kind of like a god. So I think that references relatively, I think, the process that how animals became in a sense deities. And then I think that females became deities because they thought that like they were doing animal husbandry and agriculture, and the belief that somehow fertilization, involved women, and so they started doing that. And then men become, I think, from ancestors, heroes, kings, warriors, clan leaders or whatever. They become, in a sense, like clan shamans, even like the Norse, the Odin. I've read some stuff where it says it was originally a shaman person that then became deified as Odin. Then later they forget that, like you said, they forget it was just a person, and then they're like, oh yeah, he's the greatest god. That's
precisely what the Hindus made out of Buddha.
Right.
Siddhartha Gautama was born in a Hindu family as a prince, and but again he was a free thinker of his time. So he went on in search of answers. And he found within himself, then started spreading reasoning and thinking for themselves. But then the Hindus saw problems. Okay, he's having too much power in our land. So what should we do? Let's just make him let's just make him the 9th avatar of Lord Vishnu.
Well, I would say I don't think that happened at first. I think first I agree with it, they didn't like it. So when Buddhism starts, it's not liked. So Buddhism is actually by Hindus is pushed out of India and into Afghanistan. And Afghanistan rulers actually make the first Buddhist temples. Then they go from there to Nepal, and then they go back to India, because by that time they had a large Buddhist power, and they're not going to just kill off by killing one person. There's now Buddhism spreading. And so then I agree. Then the Hindus are like, we can't get rid of it. Let's just add this in. So
so it became a part of their scriptures.
Yeah.
Now they became part of the Vedas, even the belief with the Vedas in the Hindu scriptures that those Vedas, just like Christian Orthodoxy, Vedas do not come from humans. They came from the mouth of Lord Brahma in his meditation, and it's all like gospel, and every single word of it is true. The point is, they were written through thousands of years by different people.
True.
Yet they are called that they are written by the same person or the same title. So it's all connected. We can learn good things, good philosophies from every single person. throughout our ancestry. They may be a kind of Hindu priest, Christian priest, or free thinker, atheist, doesn't matter. We can learn from all of them. I have learned from philosophers of Islam, philosophers of Christianity,
yes,
philosophers of atheism, every single place. I don't need to know I am pretty much aware of their flaws in perception. So let's just ignore it. Let's accept the good things, the good thinking that they can provide. And that's how we can proceed ahead. So that's how a species becomes better and the next generation becomes less prejudiced and less biased with as little social conditioning as possible.
Well, I think that one of the things we have to do is just what you said. You said with no social conditioning possible. I think that to me personally, it's kind of the opposite. We need to have positive social conditioning that will actually change it. Because to me, that in a sense, what I'm saying is, I don't think that humans don't social condition. In other words, if the Lord of the Flies, if you throw a bunch of kids, it's not like they get no social. Even if we've never taught them, they will generate it just in the environment themselves. So I think that if you do not teach positive, negative can be an automatic result of not teaching. In other words, if you don't teach your children how to be respectful or care or understand others, they may be selfish and hateful and whatever. But if you try to teach them, there's I'm not saying it's a guarantee because some kids still come out like fucking monsters. But in general,
we can find various neurological causes behind it, but that's a different matter.
Right. But what I meant is that I wasn't judging why they are. I was just saying that there's a big frame where most people, if you teach them, is what I was trying to say. Most people you teach them, they're generally going to do pro-social behaviors. Some people, no matter what you do, will still do anti-social behaviors because of sometimes mental or emotional or environmental reasons.
So what we are doing today is actually conditioning them to be less social with people from different cultures and different
totally
religions.
Agree. Yes,
and
we call that nationalism, and we call it patriotism.
Yes. Nationalism is just a pompous tribalism.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally, I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in countries. I see people. I don't see freaking lines on the ground and mental abstractions that humans have created that change over time. Look at just like Pakistan. Let's see. There shouldn't be a Pakistan. That's India. But now there is a Pakistan, so now you have to do the reality that people think in that line. But it's not a real line. That's something that Europeans, enforced on the people. I know a lot about history because I care about understanding the truth of how we can be better. And just like they say, if you don't understand the past, you'll keep repeating it. Well, I think that's true. And most people don't understand the past, why things are the way. They think that whatever's now is just the way it's always been. So but that's completely wrong.
Because our conscious mind, our perception is kind of the headline in a newspaper. It's not the whole news. It's just catching up fragments of the truth that we see in front of us and relate that to our predominant biases and prejudices and perceptions and beliefs and opinions and all that, and just cook up a kind of conclusion. So to avoid all the hardship of learning something, understanding something, the mind creates conclusions without actually, and that conclusion may not have even traces of truth. So we just create a conclusion without even understanding.
So in other words, blind beliefs. We make blind beliefs. We make illogical jumps. We make ridiculous, absurd, whole journeys to a conclusion that you're like, I know I did this before. My friend went on vacation, and then I got a postcard from him and says, "We'll be friends to the end." And I got so creeped out, I thought he was trying to kill me. I didn't want to be friends with him. Then by the time he got back, I had built this whole thing against me and him, and he felt that he was being the most kind. And it's just funny how my wrong perception was it was a negative thing, somehow I'm going to be taken out, or I took it as a put down, but he was meaning it in a kind way.
Yes. So we don't want to understand. Most people don't want to understand. And it's not actually their fault. Our brain has evolved in that way.
Right.
Understanding or rational thinking or free thinking takes a lot of effort and practice. After practice, it comes naturally. But first, it takes a lot of effort. And so why not just avoid that? And the brain does that subconsciously, out of the picture, behind the screen. So it does that without the person even being aware of it. So the person may be thinking, oh, I'm making the most logical and rational decision. But in reality, they may be committing the horrible deeds in the world. And that's what
Well, because I think that we can lie to ourselves in that way because, like me, it's kind of how we see it. If I take this term, friends to the end, is I thinking is in a negative way.
Yeah.
I've put a way I'm viewing it. So I am correct. If it was stated in the way I am viewing it, my conclusion would be correct. The problem is that's not how it was stated. So I think that sometimes that can happen when we get that error where, well, I'm totally logical. Yeah, but the point is wrong. So your conclusion is wrong. And I had to accept that when he came home. He goes, what are you talking about? I mean, I was angry. I was ready to fight almost. Like, oh, yeah, your friends to the end, huh? And then he's like, oh, let's be nice. And it's like my whole world crushed. And I'm like, I was an idiot, you know.
I think here we can, without a separate conversation, but I think we can put the belief matter here in it with itself. So that's precisely what belief is. Our mind's innate mechanism for creating conclusions. So those conclusions become a part of our identity. And because the brain is a kind of belief generator, we work on beliefs. Every single person, including scientists. The point is, difference between a person who's not a scientist, non-scientist, his or her belief, and another person who's a scientist, his or her belief, is that the scientist's belief would have more elements of empirical evidence in it. So it's a kind of hunch, because the more, as I said, that everything is subjective. So let's just put that aside. So the more we try to be objective and we gather data, the more access we have to data, the mind can create subconsciously a kind of hunch or hypothesis without us even being aware of it, in the case of scientists. So they can create a conclusion. Again, he's creating a belief.
Or even if it's not a full conclusion, I know what you mean. You mean it's induced, persuasion.
Yes.
I'm more likely to feel that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've seen it before where they did with the clothing, where like changed to someone like how I dress or my red beard. They look at me first. Oh, I can't listen to that guy. Oh, maybe you should.
Yeah.
I'm a lot smarter than you might think. So. And then they have a problem because then I don't fit what they wanted me to be. They go, you're a biker. I've never rode a motorcycle in my life. They're like, you play football. I don't even like watching football. I never played football. So they make a bunch of false assumptions from what their previous thing, and then they can't get past that bias.
Yes, because they are working on a kind of subconscious mechanism. So, for example, your red beard, the color red, induces in their amygdala, high amygdaloid activity, that induces fear, bias. Again, it's all subconscious. It's behind the screen, but they're not aware of it. They just feel afraid. They can't explain it.
Right.
So that is the point. When a scientist comes up with a kind of hunch, again, it is a belief of a scientist, but he knows that this is a belief. This is a hunch.
Well, we hope he knows. Not all scientists know. Sometimes scientists can have lots of beliefs and be very unaware. Because I think one of the funniest things to me is, even the moment I entered college, I mean, I'm a lot more of a thinker now, but I was always a thinker. And my teacher in critical thinking class, the first day, he opens, says something, I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like critical thinking. And he's like, wow, you're right. I've told that for almost 30 years. No one's ever said anything. You're amazing. And I was like, well, I'm just paying attention. I'm hearing now I know it's axiology. I hear the layers in what you're saying. I slow it down. I'm like, well, catch that thing you just said.
So when we say conclusion, it's like I'm referring it to the brain's way of creating a conclusion. So it is actually a conclusion created by the brain
right.
for us as our opinion or as our belief, as our hunch. A real scientist, let's just call it a real scientist, what a scientist should do, at least be aware that it is a belief. It may be true, it may be false, so let's just see it, experiment on it.
Exactly. Don't believe everything you think is what I try to do.
Yes.
My mind, in other words, generate thousands of ideas. I've heard it said before that someone is a wise person who could entertain an idea and yet not believe it.
Yeah, exactly. For example, because I'm constantly working on various books, and in many cases there are kind of thoughts that just appear, and then I have to think over those thoughts. Whether I can actually put it in the book, is it actually right or is just wrong? So if it passes that analysis, then I can make it a part of the book. Otherwise, it goes into the trash.
I'm writing a book too, and trust me, I put stuff in, and then later I find more stuff, and I got to take that out or change it a little bit. So mine's going to be done soon, but I don't know, maybe every year or something. I don't know. I'm working more on quality, like you're talking about, than I'm working on how fast it gets out. For me, I want my book to hit the world and destroy religion to its fucking foundation. Well, at least what I want is for people to see that it is a human evolved product. It's a cultural element. It's just a.
It's not going to. Your book would be a part of the entire process, but it's not going to be soon because people are too.
Well, yeah. I don't think that what I'm saying I'm gonna shake it to its foundations.
Yes.
To me, because I'm gonna start arming the people to understand. See, like a lot of people go, oh well, we don't know religion came when it happened. Well, I do now, or I have a very, very good hypothesis. Now, I'm not talking about cognitively. I'm talking about archaeologically, the actual data, the actual artifacts. That's what I'm talking about.
Actually, that's a lot of important because, for example, let's talk about Christ. We are also finding out evidence that he may not have existed in the first place. So we cannot even be sure whether he did exist. But the first thing that we need to do is just...
Or even if Paul existed, truly. I mean, there's claims, but or was there one Paul? I mean, they say that I think almost half of the books attributed to Paul were not written by Paul, somebody else.
Also, when we are talking about Christian history, there have been various church councils in which a lot of books, a lot of scriptures written during the time of Christ, during those times, they have been suppressed, distorted, and even burned by the church.
Just so you know, I generally just say Jesus, not Christ, because Christ is a label of authority. That's like saying Lord Jesus. So to me, it's like you saying Lord, and I'm supposed to know you mean Jesus.
Yes, Jesus. Let's just say Jesus from Nazareth. So yes, that's what the church made Jesus into Christ, so that they could sell tickets to heaven to the people.
Or maybe the Romans to control the peasants, to give unto Rome as what is Rome's. I mean, come on, that's like written for Rome.
So there are also evidences coming up that Jesus may not have existed. But that's a different...
Same with Buddha, though. There's no real evidence that Buddha existed. I mean, you were talking about there's no evidence that Guru Nanak existed.
Because Guru Nanak.
I'm sorry for saying the name a little bit wrong, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The person who wrote, and there was the person who wrote the Sikhism, and I can't remember what the heck the name of the book is, but
the point is the book itself. Again, Sikh orthodoxy. There are 10 gurus total after Nanak.
All male in a religion claiming equality. Just saying. So Guru Nanak is male. all of the followings are all male, which I talk about when in my thing about sexism and Sikhism, because they lie and say there isn't any. And I go, oh yeah, really? So everyone's male, the first one and everybody else, all the gurus, all male, but yet your equality? Really?
That's actually a different picture, because we can find more of egalitarianism and equality in Nanak than many other prophets.
Okay, well,
but
that's a different issue. So I'm saying it has sexism, which people say it does not.
Yes,
Bullshit.
Of course
But I do agree it is a lot better religion than a lot of other religions. I won't
compare it in that way. But,
what I mean is it talks about protecting others.
Yes,
that's part of the religion, to protect others, and including others of other faiths. So that's something you do not really hear sprouted by other religions. So that I'm just making a comment of what I know of it. I'm not saying maybe there's something I don't know. I'm not on Indian continent.
For example, the scripture of Sikhism, that is Granth Sahib, which is seen as the 11th Guru.
Right.
The Sikhism, it is seen as a living God, as a living master, living Guru. The entire scripture starts with Ekomkar Satnam Karta Purak Nirpau Nirpay Akal Murat. So the point is, we are talking about, again, a kind of idea or monotheism, one God, without any picture, without any image and all that. But the point is, Nanak was a free thinker of his time compared to many other people, because he saw that he was born in India in a time when the Hindus and the Muslims were in battle.
That's right.
He was born in a Hindu family, yet he began to talk about there is only one God.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a kind of.
But I personally think that if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, that's what it claims. The highest God, isn't it Krishna? I think, right? That's why the Hare Krishnas. It's the belief in the Krishna as isn't it that?
But the point is, Gita, that is Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
So Bhagavad means God given. Gita means song. So it is like song given by God.
Yeah.
That is here the God is Krishna. But again, to the Hindu Orthodox.
But I'm just saying, so in a sense, that is kind of a only God, because he says there's a verse in there that says something like that every form of other God is just a lesser representation of worship of me. You should just worship. Right?
That is the point. Every single scripture says that every single other God is lesser God than me.
But I know, but they're an lesser avatar of me. I think it's right.
Yes.
So it's saying, but an avatar of me would mean. I'm just making a comment that I'm not saying I 100% understand all the Asian religions. I'm just making the comment that if I say every God is other God is a lesser avatar of me, then that like a human also, that would be that all gods are me. That's only God is Krishna. That would mean monotheism in a sense, kind of an abstract way. That's what I'm saying. I think Asia actually is where, to me, monotheism truly comes from. I think it comes from Confucianism, actually.
It's a kind of evolution of free thinking, we can call it. First, we need to see that all the religions were all just given by people, and they are all worshipping the same God. That was the first step in the evolution of free thinking. The next would be recognizing that all those gods are imaginary anyway. So that's what Nanak did, that there is only one God, because they were already fighting between the Hindus and the Muslims. But again, his followers made yet another religion out of his teachings. And then it became the Granth Sahib, which is the scripture for Sikhism. So these are like in every single, and in the Bhagavad Gita, as you said, from Krishna, in the Hindu Orthodoxy, there are so many sects that every single sect, they see their God to be the ultimate one.
Oh, I agree.
Yes.
Well, because that's what I agree. There's no pan-national Hinduism. There's not. That's why I agree with you. Because
they don't even understand Hinduism because they haven't studied the scriptures.
Correct.
They study the scriptures from a limited perception, not freely.
Well, because someone could do the Tantras but not the Vedas. Someone could do the Bhagavad Gita and not any of the other ones, or someone could do all of them together.
All of them would be a little bit difficult because combined.
Come on. So some people say that they're like pagan Christians or they're, atheist Muslims, and people put all kinds of stuff together that, to me personally, I don't understand.
Actually, I think that's much better than just sticking to one label. If they are just actually able to create a cocktail out of it. It's much better.
Well, I would say it shows that it could be worse. I mean, I think that someone's took the cocktail and made the Westboro Baptist Church. That's not how all Christians are. But those guys, I'm saying not all, not all Muslims are Islamists that are being, like ISIS or something. So I think that it is not a total, universal thing and a lot of stuff. But there are elements that we can see are good and bad. To me, I think that religion is a toxic thing. And so good people, when they're given a toxic thing, like say if someone gives you a lime or a lemon, it's sour, but you can add sugar to it and make it good because in a sense someone's not a toxic person. They can figure out how to use the use of something in a non-harmful way in a sense. But someone else can then squeeze it in somebody's eyeballs and that the juice will burn them or whatever. So they could be, in a sense, harm someone with that same thing that you could drink, and it could be good for you in a sense. I'm just making a comment that, so it's really, the thing itself has the potential. It's not like evil. It just has a potential to be toxic. But we could dilute it. It can be diluted and used in a good way or it could be in a sense. But because it can be bad and is not needed for society, I say get the shit rid of it. Because in other words, I try to explain to people, to me, I'm not saying everyone has to see it this way, but to me, I see value in religion as the same as saying, well, there's undigested food particles in vomit. I'm not going to pick them up and put them back in my mouth. Because I understand they're now contaminated in a sense. They're going to taste bad and maybe make me kind of sick of it trying to eat it. So it's that realization that, yes, it's there. I'm not saying there's not actual food, nutrition somewhere in that things I just puked up. I'm not going to put them back in my mouth, though, because they've now become contaminated. And to me, even if I wash all that meat off, are you really going to eat it? No. Now, especially, this is the issue too, especially when I have clean, brand new food. I have philosophy, I have science, I have reason, I have evidence. I don't need this stuff. So I see it as toxic. It could be used as good, but most often it can be also used as bad. So it's in a sense a non-positive thing, because to me the negative and positive together means it's negative. If I stole just your wallet but not robbed your whole house, it's still negative. It's not a good thing. I should just not steal. To me, you should not learn things that are harmful. And that doesn't mean that you couldn't have something positive in a text, because obviously in a Moby Dick you could possibly learn something. Because humans are symbolic and we have a tendency to find meaning, whether or not there's there. That could be a good thing. It's not as I'm saying it's bad. Our creativity has actually invented science, I believe. Its ability to not just want to understand, but the creativity to create tools to understand it better.
Okay, let's just wrap it up in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yes. I think the idea itself, as you said, religion, I specify it as organized religion, as you already know. So, because every single ideology has problems. Whenever you turn an idea into an ideology, people turn loyal to it. And their mind begins to foster a kind of hatred towards people from different ideologies and different religions. And that's where organized religions come in. But many of the prophets, or all those people, teachers, I don't like the term prophet, all those teachers, they actually wanted to teach that all of them are basically human beings. They are all humans. And of course, their first step could have been that there is only one God and we are all children of that one God. That was their first step. That's the most they were capable of in their free thinking. So now we are capable.
Well, I would just say, for me
more.
personally, I don't see that as free thinking. The act of
No,
adding
yes,
a God explanation is not free thinking. I understand that you're saying. I would say the free thinking is the first part. Humans, to the realization that humans matter and that we need to care regardless. That absolutely, I agree with you. That's free thinking. That men and women are equal. That's free thinking. I mean, it should be rational. That no matter your country or whatever, you're the same. That's free thinking. So I think that, yes, if they're promoting that, then that is an element of free thinking.
That is the point. That is the evolution in the entire path. Because there is no, as I said, that nothing is permanent, nothing is constant. We are constantly changing. Now we have the capacity to either change back to the Stone Age or go forward. And that's why also free thinking moves forward. But it started with those, like, putting the focus on humans, that we are all equal humans. That's why Nanak, born a Hindu, said we are all humans. If we say that Jesus lived, we are all humans. Then Siddhartha Gautama became Buddha, we are all humans. Another Muslim mystic, Rumi, he was also Muslim, but we are all human.
I like a lot of things that I've seen of Rumi. I don't like him personally, but just like I don't really agree with Guru Nanak, but I think that I agree with you. I'm not denying it. I agree. There is definitely wisdom. I mean,
we don't have to. That is the point. That is free thinking. We don't have to agree with every single thing that a person says, but we have to be able.
I have a hard time doing that.
Yes, that is the point. We just need to be able to recognize anything good that person may have and which we may be using in our daily life, in our society of today. That is free thinking. That is real enlightenment.
Right. So I want to end with just reading something I wrote. So people have an odd, magical, mystical view often of enlightenment. Enlightenment to me is nothing but natural. It is to me embracing our humanness and our connected humanity. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and try to understand others. Have an openness to love others, and strive to respect that others own themselves and support them in their endeavors to be their best.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I think that's what enlightenment is. Humanity. Plain, ordinary, everyday humanity.
Right on. Well, it's been good talking to you, and we'll have another chat again.